Both my mom and my dad are at retirement age now. My mom is actually retired and my dad is approaching that quite soon. And this has got me thinking about some retirement questions when we hit the age of 60. Questions like, how much does the average 60-year-old have in retirement savings? What is too little in retirement savings around the age of 60? And if you don't have enough in retirement, what are things you can do? We'll be exploring these questions in this video to make sure you're prepared when you hit the age 60 and to see if my parents can do anything better for themselves. And also, you can make sure what steps you need to take for yourself as well. But as usual, guys, none of this is financial advice. I'm literally not a financial advisor.
Knowledge.
Now, just in case you feel like you don't have enough for retirement, you honestly aren't alone. After looking at the report on economic, the well-being of U.S. households in 2022 to May 2023, this is the latest data, many people feel the same way. Turns out 3/4 of non-retired adults have some retirement savings, but about 28% did not have any retirement savings. This means they had nothing. No contributions, no 401ks, no Roths, no nothing. If you have something, you are already ahead of the quarter of the population, which is actually kind of scary to think that over a quarter of adult Americans have nothing toward retirement. So that's kind of crazy. Not only that, if we scroll down, we can see during 2022, only 31% felt the retirement savings were on track. Now, it's no surprise that this number fell 9% in 2022 due to the bear market. But hopefully those people stayed in the market instead of hopping out because they would have missed the great recovery that we've experienced until this point so far. And if we scroll down and look at the age brackets for any retirement savings, we can see it increases as the older you get, which is to be expected. It makes sense that adults 18 to 29, only 57% of them have any retirement savings. I didn't have any when I was young either, when I was 18. But if we look at the retirement savings on track column, we can see this only increases slightly each year. And people in the 60 plus category, 41% feel they're on track. So not even half can say that they feel on track when they hit 60 plus. And we notice there's only a 2% difference between 30 to 44 and 45 to 59. It only increases 2%. My assumption is since this is the major age, you have like kids, get married, get a house, saving becomes harder for retirement. So this is kind of the age where things really start to ramp up. As you see, this increases 7% in this category. And then this is the most amount of people that will have any retirement savings. And the Asians are really doing something right, guys. 84% have retirement savings, and they have the highest category for retirement savings on track. So bravo. So just to reiterate, not even half of Americans feel the retirement savings are on track. And we can see this when we look at the average retirement accounts from the Survey of Consumer Finances, and we'll do the mean and median of these average accounts from the Federal Reserve System. Right now, we're going to look at the mean, and the mean amount people have is $537,000. This is in US thousands for 55 to 64. And then if you go to the next column, it's $609,000 in retirement accounts. And when we see this, we might think, that actually isn't that bad. That's a huge amount of savings for the people in this category for 2022. I mean, they have $500,000 in retirement, and that'll give you some decent income along with Social Security. But remember, guys, we're on the mean, which is really the average, and sometimes the average is misleading if there are large differences in data, which is why we also need to look at the median over here. This is an overly simplistic example to explain the differences, but if I asked 3 people how much money they had in their wallet, guy number 1 said he had $1. Guy number 2 said he also only had $1. Guy number 3 just got back from the bank and he was carrying around a fat stack of hundreds and it had $1,000. If I average this, I get the average amount these people are carrying, these 3 people in their wallet, is $334. If I use the median, which on here is the middle of a sorted list, I would get $1 instead of $334. So we can see how the two calculations can differ greatly depending on if I do the median or the average. So when I look at the median, I get very different results for retirement accounts of age by reference person. The 55 to 64 now has $185,000, and the 65 to 74 has $200,000. Compare this again to the mean, that's $537,000 and $609,000. These are huge different results because now we're just taking the middle of the population, meaning 50% has more and 50% has less. And I think this is a more accurate representation of what most 55 to 64-year-olds have, $185,000. This is like a $300,000 difference if we take the average. So when we look at this, we know how much the median person has in their retirement account. And that's fine and dandy, but maybe if some of you were like, I don't have 185 grand. I don't have 200 grand. I don't even have 45 grand. What do I do if I don't have these numbers? Don't feel bad because these numbers don't really answer how much do you need. If you live in Los Angeles, you're going to need a lot more than someone that lives in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, right? That's a big difference. So what's the general rule of thumb by the time you're 60? If we look at Fidelity's website, they have this nice little graph saying you need 8 times your salary by the time you're 60. If you're 55, it's 7, 50, it's 6. So if you make 50K currently, let's say you make 50K and you're 60 years old, you need $400,000. You can do the math for your own situation. It's not that hard. Now keep in mind when they do this is most likely an overestimation, so don't feel discouraged. It's probably an overestimation because if you're already 60, luckily Social Security is around the corner and will kick in soon for you in 2 short years. Hopefully you have most of your mortgage paid off or fully paid off, and as you get older and generally in retirement, you just tend to spend less because you don't need as much. Your medical bills will increase at some point, yes, but maybe for the first bit of your retirement, you travel a lot, go on vacations, do fun things with family and friends. But eventually, as you age, that's going to slow down, and many retirees become hermit-like, just to be frank. And we can see this in the great chart from Virtual Capitalist, which I'll pull up here. And when we look at peak spending, it's between 45 and 54, and it says 64.6% of total income. When we scroll down to 75 years or older, it's $40,000. So that's a $20,000 difference, but they're spending most of their income. And very few things tend to increase when you're over 75. Almost all categories go down compared to our peak spending between 45 and 54. The only things that really go up are gifts and charity, and then health insurance. Those are really the only 2 main things that increase. I'm going to put the article in the description if you want to look at it and go through the charts. They're really interesting. So assuming you follow a similar trajectory, you won't be spending as much as you think unless you are really lavish in your retirement. I mean, good for you. So the question is though, how much do you actually need? And to be honest, I'm not sure. That's a very difficult question to answer. You might not need 8x the amount of your salary, but it would be wise after this video to do some calculations for yourself. It'll be wise to figure out how much Social Security do you plan to get. I put the calculator in the description so you can do that for yourself. Questions like what expenses do you hope to have paid off by retirement? Will you be debt-free? What is the projected rate you anticipate your investments to grow? These are all factors that greatly influence how much you actually need for retirement. Fidelity estimates that we spend 55 to 80% of our annual income from when we're working in our retirement. So let's do an example and let us use Bob. If Bob was somehow living on $50K a year in this modern age, Bob can expect to spend 55 to 80% in his retirement. Bob's a frugal guy, so let's say like 60% for him. 60% of $50K is $30,000 he needs every year. If Bob is 60 right now, and he took his Social Security right away at 62, just doing the quick calculator online, that would be $1,129 per month. For him, $1,129 times 12 is $13,548. That's almost 50% of his expenses are covered by Social Security. That means if we do a typical 4% rule, and Bob actually saved the 8x amount recommended by Fidelity, that would be $400,000 because he had a $50K salary. If we withdrew 4% every year, that gives him about $16,000 from his investments. The $16,000 plus the Social Security is $29,548. This is very close to his $30,000 goal he would need. So in this case, yes, Bob did need the 8x amount for his retirement. But the question is, what happens when his mortgage is paid off? What happens when Bob has no more consumer debt? What happens when Bob's spending slows down, when he doesn't travel as much, he's sick and tired, and he just has more medical bills and he's not as active? His spending will continually decrease until the major medical bills come along. But again, this is just an example. You need to do the math for yourself to actually see. I don't know your medical conditions. I don't know what expenses you have. So lastly, what do you do if you're not even close to having any form of retirement numbers? Like if we look at the averages again, the median, we can see people in 55 to 64 have $185,000. What if you're not even close to that? This is not financial advice. This is just my opinion. But honestly, guys, you're just in for a wake-up call. You need to do some major work if you want to retire soon. I don't know your situation, but if you're lacking financial investments for retirement, there's going to be many things you need to do to get on track. It's really just doing the financial basics. You need to pay off all debt as quickly as possible so your spending decreases in retirement. You're going to need to save and invest aggressively and maybe even need to do a second job or a side gig to stack some extra income. We're lucky now we can do almost any online job, simple jobs. We can do a food delivery service. We can do Uber, anything like that to make extra money without a large commitment. So maybe that's something you need to do. Maybe you need to delay the age you take out Social Security, unfortunately. But maybe just buy a couple years to work a little harder to make a little bit more money so you can invest that instead. Maybe you can also do something like a half retirement where you retire from your full-time job and just switch to a part-time job and then live off other incomes. There are many options, but it's impossible to give a solid game plan to you since everyone's situation is a little different. And quite frankly, you'll have to do the work yourself to figure it out or work with an actual financial advisor. So I encourage you to make the changes you need and to create a plan if you're in a sticky situation. If you're curious about my retirement portfolio, you can check that out right here because I'm hoping to have enough to retire early. Peace.